The signal that shouldn't exist. The black emptiness of the Kuiper belt stretched endlessly in every direction. Captain Elias Cross sat in the command chair of the Odyssey, watching the stars drift by on the ship's main screen. It had been 3 weeks since they left Neptune Station, and the journey so far had been quiet. Too quiet. Out here, there were no trade lanes, no colonies, and no reason for anyone to send a signal. That was why the alarm made his stomach turn cold. "Captain, you need to see this," said Lieutenant Mara Vance, her voice tight. Her fingers danced across the console, and a strange, repeating sound filled the bridge. It wasn't static. It wasn't alien speech. It was human. Elias leaned forward, frowning. "That's English. Old Earth English." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They all knew the protocols. Humans hadn't used that old frequency for almost a century. Every colony, every ship, every outpost had switched to the newer quantum channels long ago. The only people who still used it were history archives and museums. Mara turned up the volume, and the words came through, faint but clear. "We never moved on. We never moved on. We never moved on." The phrase repeated in a slow, hollow voice, like someone speaking from the other side of a wall. "Source?" Elias asked. "Coming from orbital coordinates, 231 Mark 75, Mara replied. She swallowed hard before adding, "Sir, that's on the surface of K-47. The name hit him like a blow. K-47 was a frozen moon orbiting a gas giant so far out that it never saw sunlight. But more importantly, it was where the Archimedes, a colony ship carrying 500 settlers, had disappeared 72 years ago. Official records claimed the ship suffered a reactor breach and was destroyed before landing. No one had ever found survivors. Elias stared at the blinking coordinates on the screen. "Is there any possibility this is a trap?" "Could be pirates using old frequencies," suggested Ensign Taylor, though his tone lacked conviction. "But pirates don't use personal distress loops, and definitely not one this old." The ship's AI, an emotionless voice named Orion, cut in. "Analysis complete. This broadcast matches no known alien encryption. The vocal patterns are human. Age of recording, unknown. Probability of origin being Archimedes crew, 74%. The bridge went silent. Elias felt his pulse quicken. A 74% chance that someone from the Archimedes was still alive after all these years? Impossible. And yet the signal kept repeating as if daring them to answer. "Captain," Mara said carefully, "Fleet Command would tell us to relay this and wait for a recon team. K-47 is off limits for a reason." Elias looked around at his crew. They were tired, restless, and maybe a little bored of the safe routine. And deep down, he knew he couldn't just fly past a voice calling for help. "Plot a course," he said finally. "We'll take a look." The Odyssey turned silently in the darkness, engines pushing them toward the frozen moon. 2 hours later, K-47 filled the screen, a dead world of white ice and black rock. The gas giant it orbited loomed behind it, a massive swirl of orange and gold clouds. No lights, no movement. "Signal is stronger now," Mara reported. "Sources coming from an abandoned structure near the equator. Looks like human architecture." Elias activated the landing sequence. "Prepare a shuttle team. I want boots on the ground in 10. The shuttle touched down in a shallow crater, the ice crunching under the landing struts. Elias, Mara, Taylor, and 2 security officers stepped out into the cold, their suits sealing against the vacuum. The sky above was a deep, endless black, broken only by the glow of the gas giant. The signal led them toward a cluster of buildings half buried in snow. The designs were unmistakably human, pre-expansion era, with metal walls and glass panels now frosted over. It was like walking into a ghost's memory. Inside the first building, their helmet lights swept across rows of frozen equipment. A thin layer of ice coated every surface. The airlock doors had been left open, as if someone had rushed out and never returned. "Getting warmer readings ahead," Mara said, scanning the floor. They moved deeper into the structure. The sound of their boots echoed off the metal walls. Then, without warning, a new sound joined the repeating signal. Light, high-pitched. and disturbingly human. A child's laugh. The team froze. "Orion, confirm audio," Elias ordered. "Confirmed. Sound profile, human child. Distance, 24 meters. They advanced slowly, weapons ready. The laughter came again, softer this time, followed by the faint sound of footsteps. But when they reached the next room, it was empty. Just overturned chairs, half-melted cups, and a faded mural of a smiling sun on the wall. In the center of the floor, someone had scratched a message into the metal with something sharp. The letters were crude, uneven, but readable. "If you hear this, it's already too late." Mara's breathing quickened over the comms. "Sir, we should leave. Now." Elias stared at the words, feeling the temperature inside his suit drop even lower. The repeating voice in the comms kept saying it, "We never moved on." And suddenly he wasn't sure they should have come here at all. Then from the corner of his eye he saw it. A shadow moving across the far wall, too fast and too tall to be human. "Everyone back to the shuttle," he ordered. But even as they turned, the laughter came again, much closer this time. The moon of ghosts. The shuttle doors sealed shut the moment the crew stepped inside, but the silence didn't follow them. The faint sound of the child's laughter still echoed through their comms, even though they were no longer inside the building. Elias, XE, hanged a tense glance with Mara, then ordered, "Shut off all external audio feeds." The laughter stopped instantly, but that didn't make anyone feel safer. They lifted off, heading back toward the Odyssey. The moon's surface slid beneath them, endless stretches of white ice, fractured by deep black cracks. In the distance they saw more abandoned structures, some half buried in snowdrifts, others standing untouched as if waiting for their owners to return. "Captain," Mara said quietly, "those buildings aren't on any colonial maps. This place was supposed to have one settlement, not a whole city." Elias didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the horizon, where a massive shadow stretched across the ice. It wasn't the shadow of the gas giant. It was coming from something tall, impossibly tall, far in the distance. "Put us down near the original signal," he told the pilot. "We need to see what's really here." The second landing site was worse than the first. Here the snow was littered with broken tools, torn fabric, and collapsed shelters. The airless silence pressed against their suits like a weight. Inside the main building, the lights still worked. Dim, flickering, but alive. Their helmet lamps picked out tables still set for meals, chairs still pulled out as if someone had just stood up. There was even steam rising from a metal mug on one table. But the thermal scanner showed nothing. No living heat signatures. Taylor's voice shook over the comm. "Sir, this isn't possible. Nothing should stay warm out here without constant power. And this place has been abandoned for 72 years. Mara stopped suddenly. "Captain, look at this." On the wall, photographs were pinned in neat rows. Families, children, smiling faces. Some wore the uniform of the Archimedes. Others were in civilian clothes. Every photo had a date written under it, but the date stopped at exactly 1 day after the Archimedes supposedly crashed. And yet, the people in the photos looked the same in every picture. No one aged, not in a single frame. Elias moved deeper into the building and found a door marked school. He pushed it open, revealing a classroom frozen in time. Small desks, bright drawings on the walls, and a globe of old Earth. On the chalkboard, someone had scrawled a sentence in huge, uneven letters. They said it was for us. Suddenly, something clattered in the corner. Elias spun around, weapon raised. A red ball rolled slowly across the floor, stopping at his feet. He scanned the room. No one there. "Team, regroup," he ordered. They left the building, crossing an open square toward the signal source. The wind, if it could be called that, sent tiny shards of ice drifting past them. The constant blinking on Mara's scanner told them they were close. The source was a comms tower, half encased in ice. The broadcasting dish was cracked, but the old equipment still pulsed with a faint blue glow. Wires ran from its base down into the frozen ground. Elias knelt beside the console. The voice loop, "We never moved on," was coming directly from this tower. but the power levels were too low for a normal signal to run for decades. "This is running off something else," he muttered. Before he could investigate further, Orion's voice came over the comms. "Captain, long-range sensors detect movement. Multiple contacts approaching your position." "How many?" 22. Speed, variable. Movement pattern, non-biological." The crew closed ranks. Shadows began to form at the edges of the square, sliding between the buildings. They were tall, angular shapes, barely visible in the dim light. One of them stepped closer, and the helmet lamps caught it. It wasn't human. It wasn't even fully solid. Its body looked like a projection made of smoke and light, flickering at the edges. And yet, its face was unmistakable. Human eyes, staring directly at them. Mara whispered, "Captain, that's one of the people in the photos." The figure didn't move. Then its lips parted, and in the same hollow tone as the signal, it spoke. "We never moved on." Without warning, all 22 shapes advanced, their forms glitching in and out of sight as they closed in. The crew backed toward the comms tower, weapons raised, but Elias knew shooting wouldn't help. These things weren't alive in the normal sense. "Orion, prepare for emergency extraction," he ordered. As the figures reached the edge of the square, one of them stepped into the light. Its face flickered between solid and transparent, but Elias could see every detail, the same detail from a photograph pinned to the wall inside the settlement. And then it smiled. "You came back," it said. Before Elias could respond, the ice beneath the comms tower cracked with a sound like breaking glass. Blue light poured from the fissures, rushing upward like water. The figures began to dissolve into it, their eyes never leaving the crew. The last thing Elias heard before the light swallowed the square was that same voice, now whispering directly in his ear. "It's our turn now. The last survivors." When the light faded, the square was empty. No shadows, no figures, only the whispering wind across the ice. Elias blinked, struggling to adjust his vision after the blinding blue glow. Mara was beside him, scanning wildly with her rifle. Taylor muttered over comms, "What the hell just happened?" The comms tower still stood, its faint blue light flickering like a dying candle. But now, a narrow tunnel yawned open at its base, a black wound in the ice leading down. Elias didn't need to say anything. They all knew they were going in. The descent was slow. Their helmet lamps revealed walls of ice shot through with cables and pipes, some ancient, some newer. At the bottom, the tunnel widened into a massive chamber. And there were people. Not flick. Airing shapes, not shadows. Real humans. A group of perhaps 30 huddled around a small fire that somehow burned without oxygen. They were thin, pale, and dressed in uniforms so old they looked like museum pieces. One woman rose as they approached. Her hair was silver, but her face was young, too young for someone who should be in her 90s. "You're late," she said. Elias froze. You were on the Archimedes." She nodded. "We all were." Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "We're what's left." The survivors led the crew deeper into the chamber. The air here was warm, breathable. Strange humming came from the walls. In the center, a tall, black structure pulsed with light, alien in design, but fused with human technology. Mara whispered, "That's not ours." The woman, who introduced herself as Anna Kelso, overheard. "No, we found it here when we landed. Or maybe it found us. It kept us alive." Taylor frowned. "For 72 years? Anna's eyes met his. "No, not 72 years. For one day, the same day, over and over." They explained it in pieces. The Archimedes had landed after a reactor failure forced them down. They discovered the alien device buried under the ice, still powered after who knows how long. It emitted a field that froze everything inside it in time. People didn't age, wounds didn't heal, but they also didn't worsen. Hunger and thirst didn't matter. "At first we thought it was salvation," Anna said quietly. "We could wait here until rescue came, but rescue never came, and the day never ended." Elias asked. So, you've been living the same day for 72 years? Her lips tightened. We've been reliving it. The same conversations, the same footsteps, the same mistakes. And every time someone tries to destroy the machine, we lose them. As they spoke, Elias noticed something strange. The other survivors didn't seem interested in the newcomers. They repeated the same small actions, stirring the fire, adjusting chairs, nodding at each other, in a perfect loop. One man even walked past Elias twice in the exact same way, each time carrying the same cup. Mara leaned close and whispered, "Captain, I think some of them aren't really here." Elias felt it too. Half this group seemed real, the others felt like echoes. Anna led them to the alien device. Up close it was unsettling. Its surface seemed to shift like liquid, yet it was solid to the touch. Symbols moved across it, rearranging themselves like they were alive. "This is the heart of it," she said. "We call it the anchor. It holds us here. If you destroy it, we die. But if you don't—" Her voice trailed off. Elias finished for her. "You stay trapped forever." Anna's eyes softened. "We sent the signal to warn others. We didn't expect anyone to answer." "Then why keep it running?" Mara asked. Anna's expression darkened. "Because it won't let us stop it." The humming in the walls grew louder. Elias turned, scanning the chamber. Some of the Echo survivors were now staring at the crew, their movements no longer perfectly repeated. Their eyes glowed faint blue. Taylor muttered, "Captain, we've been noticed." Anna stepped back. "You should leave. Now." Before Elias could respond, one of the blue-eyed figures spoke in a voice that was not human at all. Deep, resonant, and cold. New minds detected. Integration in progress. The alien device flared with light, and every blue-eyed survivor began to walk toward them in perfect unison. Elias raised his rifle. "Team, fall back!" They moved toward the tunnel, but the ice at its entrance sealed over like water, freezing in seconds. They were trapped. The glowing survivors closed in, their faces blank, movements precise. Mara fired a warning shot, but the beam passed right through one of them without effect. The alien voice came again. "We never moved on, but you will." Then, the floor itself shifted, pulling Elias and his crew toward the black structure. The real survivors, the ones without glowing eyes, watched silently, making no move to help. Anna's voice, almost a whisper, reached Elias before the light consumed his vision. "This is how it always begins. The experiment's truth." When Elias opened his eyes, he wasn't in the ice chamber anymore. He was standing on a sunlit street. Warm air brushed against his face. Birds sang in the distance. The smell of fresh bread drifted from somewhere nearby. It looked like a perfect Earth summer day, except Earth was nearly 1 billion kilometers away. Around him, people strolled by in slow, measured steps. The same people, over and over. He saw the same man in a brown coat pass him 3 times in under a minute, each time carrying the same loaf of bread. Mara appeared beside him, eyes wide. "Sir, I think this is a simulation." Taylor stumbled forward from behind, clutching his head. "But it feels real." He kicked at the cobblestone street. It was solid, warm. Before Elias could answer, Anna Kelso stepped out from a nearby doorway, her silver hair shining in the sun. "Welcome to the surface," she said softly. "This is what the machine thinks our world should be." She led them toward a large square where the black alien structure stood again. Only here it looked like a beautiful monument, covered in flowers and banners. People gathered around it, smiling as though it were a festival. "This is the inside of the anchor," Anna explained. "What you see here is a memory, a false one. It keeps us comfortable so we don't fight back." Elias studied the monument. The same shifting alien symbols moved across it, except now, human letters blended in between them. He froze. Among the shifting patterns, he saw a name. His own. Captain Elias Cross, it read. Mission Lead, Project Lumen. Mara caught it too. "Sir, Why is your name on an alien device? Anna looked at him with something between pity and anger. Because this isn't just an alien machine. This was built by humans. We just didn't build it alone. The words hit harder than any weapon. She explained that decades before the Archimedes launched, a secret human research program had found an alien artifact deep in Saturn's rings. It was incomplete, but they studied its time-warping abilities and tried to finish it with human tech. They called it Project Lumen, and the goal wasn't survival, it was control. They wanted to trap whole colonies in loops, Anna said bitterly, a way to keep settlements from rebelling or to preserve valuable populations for when they were needed. And your name, Captain, was on the list of officers who approved it. Elias felt his stomach twist. That's impossible. I wasn't even born when the Archimedes launched. Anna's gaze didn't soften. Not in your time. But the machine doesn't work in just one direction. The thought made his skin crawl. If the anchor could hold time still, maybe it could also reach back, plucking people from different points in history. Maybe Elias had been here before, just as Anna had warned in the chamber. Suddenly the world around them flickered. The warm sun dimmed. The happy crowd froze mid-step. A deep mechanical voice rolled through the air, integration at 40%. New operators detected. The monument's base split open, revealing a dark tunnel leading down. Elias felt a cold pull in his chest, the same sensation from when they were dragged toward the device in the real chamber. Mara grabbed his arm. Sir, if this thing is human-made, maybe we can shut it down from inside. Anna's eyes darkened. Many have tried. All of them ended up like the others you saw. Still, Elias led the way into the tunnel. The walls here pulsed with a strange blue light, almost like veins under skin. The deeper they went, the more the perfect simulation above began to crumble. Cracks appeared in the air itself, showy, and flashes of the real ice chamber outside. Finally, they reached the core. It wasn't a control room. It was a memory vault. Rows of floating panels displayed moments from countless lives, real and simulated. Some showed scenes from the Archimedes. Others showed Earth cities, alien worlds, even starships Elias had never seen before. And then he saw something that made his breath catch. One panel showed him, older, gray-haired, wearing a different uniform, standing beside the same black device, smiling. That's you, Mara whispered. Elias stepped closer, but as he did, the image shifted. Now it showed him walking away from the device while hundreds of people screamed, trapped inside a collapsing dome. Anna's voice was tight. The anchor doesn't just preserve time, Captain. It remembers every choice you've made, across every version of you, and it uses that to keep you here. Before Elias could speak, the mechanical voice returned, louder than before. Integration at 60%. Past alignment complete. The panels around them flickered, and one by one, scenes of their lives began to disappear. It's erasing us, Mara said, panic in her voice. Elias knew then, if they didn't destroy the anchor soon, there would be nothing left of them to save. The choice to leave. The panels kept vanishing, each one going dark with a sharp glass-like crack. With every one that disappeared, Elias felt something in his chest grow lighter and emptier. Mara staggered, gripping her helmet as if holding her head together. Sir, I think it's taking my memories. Taylor dropped to one knee. It's pulling them out. Everything before we landed here, gone. Anna stood a few steps back, her expression unreadable. This is what happens when you stay too long. The anchor keeps the body, but strips away the person. Elias forced himself to focus. There has to be a way to shut it down. Anna's gaze shifted toward the far side of the chamber. There, a single black panel hung in the air, brighter than the rest. And that's the core access, but it's not simple. If you destroy it, the loop ends. All of us, real or echo, will vanish instantly. Mara swallowed. And if we don't? Anna looked up at the vanishing panels. Then you'll be like them, trapped, forever. They moved toward the core panel. The closer they got, the more the world around them fractured. Parts of the ice chamber bled into the simulation. Jagged walls of frost cutting through sunny streets, frozen figures locked mid-step. The perfect town above was dying. The core pulsed slowly like the heartbeat of something enormous. Elias raised his weapon, but Anna stepped between him and the panel. "You need to think, Captain," she said firmly. "This isn't just about us. The anchor can preserve entire civilizations. Humanity could use this to survive disasters, wars, extinctions. If you destroy it, you erase that chance forever." Taylor's voice was sharp. "Or you leave it and it falls into the wrong hands. And we're proof of what happens when it does." Elias lowered his weapon slightly, torn. He thought about the real survivors, the pale, tired people huddled around the fire. If he shut the anchor down, they'd finally be free, but they'd die in seconds, decades of false life catching up to them. He thought about the echoes, the hollow shells, still smiling, still repeating the same steps over and over. Would ending them be a mercy or murder? And then there was something worse. The image he saw earlier of an older him walking away while people screamed haunted him. Had he made this choice before? Had he already failed them once? Mara's voice broke the silence. "Sir, we're running out of time. It's at 75% integration. Soon we won't even remember why we came here." Elias stepped past Anna. "Then we end it." Anna grabbed his arm. "No, you don't understand. If you do this, you might destroy more than just this loop. The anchor exists in multiple timelines at once. Breaking it here could erase you in all of them." Elias met her gaze. Maybe that's the point. He stepped up to the core panel. The surface rippled at his touch, showing flashes of different worlds: Earth in golden sunlight, alien cities under green skies, the Archimedes in orbit, untouched and whole. And then, his own crew, alive and laughing, aboard the Odyssey before the signal ever came. The anchor was offering him an escape. The mechanical voice rumbled, "Choose preservation or release." Two symbols appeared on the panel, one glowing white, one burning red. Mara stepped up beside him. "Captain?" Elias stared at the white symbol, safety, but endless captivity. Then the red, freedom, but only through finality. He took a breath. "We came here to answer a call for help, not to become part of it." And he pressed the red. The panel flared so brightly it felt like the light was inside his skull. A sound like rushing wind roared through the chamber. The simulation shattered completely, and they were back in the real ice cavern. The black alien device was cracking apart, spilling blinding light. The real survivors looked up at it, some with fear, some with relief. One by one, they began to fade, smiling faintly as they dissolved into the glow. Anna stood in front of Elias, her edges already breaking apart like ash in the wind. "Thank you," she whispered. "Now we can move on." Her last words echoed long after she was gone. The cavern shook violently. The ice overhead split open, revealing the black sky beyond. A pull like gravity gone wrong yanked at them. Mara shouted, "Sir, we're being dragged in!" Elias grabbed her and Taylor, activating the emergency beacons on their suits. The Odyssey's AI responded instantly, locking onto their signals. Just before the light swallowed him, Elias heard the anchor's voice one last time. Softer now, almost human. Integration aborted. Release complete. The ones who guard the machine, the Odyssey's shuttle yanked them out of the collapsing cavern in a burst of blue thruster light. Elias, Mara, and Taylor hit the deck hard, their helmets fogged, ears ringing from the sudden decompression. They were alive. But as the shuttle climbed toward orbit, Elias saw movement on the moon's surface below. Shapes pushing through the clouds of ice and dust. Not human shapes. "Captain, you might want to see this," the pilot said, voice tight. Elias leaned over his shoulder. The ice where the alien device had been buried was cracking outward in jagged lines. From each fracture, something enormous was emerging, tall constructs of black metal and glowing veins of blue light. Their movements were too precise to be natural, too heavy to be machines alone. Mara stared. Guardians. Taylor's voice was barely a whisper. Then, this thing was never unprotected. The constructs turned their featureless heads toward the shuttle, and the faint blue glow in their chests flared brighter. "Shields up," Elias ordered. "Get us to the Odyssey now." They broke through the thin layer of atmosphere and into orbit, but the Guardians didn't stay behind. 3 of them unfolded strange wings of energy and launched themselves upward, covering the distance between the moon and space in seconds. The Odyssey came into view ahead, its docking bay already open, but the AI's calm voice cut through the comms. "Warning. Unidentified objects approaching at high velocity. Impact in 30 seconds. The Guardians hit first. One slammed into the shuttle's aft section, spinning them off course. Another gripped the hull, its claws slicing through armor like paper. The third hovered just out of reach, emitting a low hum that made the crew's vision blur and their thoughts slow. Mara's hands moved desperately over the controls. "I can't shake them." Taylor grabbed a side panel and ripped out a relay, rerouting power to the shields. "Hold her steady!" The hum outside deepened, and the shuttle's lights flickered. Elias felt a cold weight pressing into his mind. Images of the anchor, whole again, waiting for them to return. The Odyssey's weapons opened fire, beams of concentrated plasma lancing into the first Guardian. The shot blew a hole clean through its chest, but the construct didn't fall. Instead, the blue light inside flared and began knitting the wound shut. Elias realized with a sinking heart, they weren't here to kill. They were here to retrieve. "They're not trying to destroy us," he said. "They're trying to take us back." Mara's eyes widened. "Like the survivors. Like Anna." One Guardian punched through the hull, its long arm reaching into the cabin. Elias grabbed the emergency cutter and sliced through the arm's blue veins. The construct recoiled with a sharp electronic screech, but its touch left a strange burn on Elias's glove, the material flaking away as if aged decades in seconds. Taylor shouted, "Captain, if they get us, we're done. They'll rebuild the anchor, and we'll be the first ones in it." Then Orion, the ship's AI, spoke again. "Captain, recommendation, engage Lunar Defense Protocol Gamma." Elias froze. Protocol Gamma wasn't a weapon. It was a collapse strike. If they used it, the Odyssey would detonate the moon's crust, burying everything, including the remains of the anchor, under thousands of meters of rock and ice. Mara hesitated. "Sir, if there's even a chance the anchor's tech could help humanity." "We've already seen what it does," Elias cut in. "And if those things rebuild it, no one will be able to stop them." The Odyssey's rail batteries rotated toward the moon. The Guardians seemed to sense what was coming. They released the shuttle, drifting back with an almost human stillness. For a moment, Elias thought they might retreat. They didn't. The 3 constructs locked together, forming a single larger figure, twice the size, its core blazing with blue fire. It launched itself directly toward the Odyssey. Orion's voice was steady. "Impact in 15 seconds. "Do it," Elias ordered. The Odyssey fired. A ripple of force tore through space, slamming into the moon. The surface buckled, ice exploding outward in silent waves. Cracks raced across its face, and deep beneath, something pulsed once in defiance before the crust folded in on itself. The Guardian-merged figure let out a sound that was neither machine nor life. And then it was gone, swallowed by the collapsing moon. The shock wave rocked the shuttle and the Odyssey, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the blast. Taylor exhaled slowly. "It's over." Elias looked out at the debris field where the moon had been. "No," he said quietly, "it's not. That was just one anchor. If we built this with them once, we could do it again." Mara's jaw tightened. "Then we have to make sure no one ever tries." Elias nodded. "And to do that, we tell the truth. We never moved on." The Odyssey drifted in silence for 3 days after the destruction of the moon. No distress signals, no strange voices, only the hum of the engines and the quiet breathing of a crew that had seen too much. Elias spent most of those days in his quarters staring at the data slate in his hands. On it were the files Anna had given him before the anchor collapsed. They weren't just logs of the Archimedes, they were blueprints. Blueprints for the anchor. On the fourth day, Mara came to him. She looked tired, her eyes shadowed. "Sir, we've scanned the surrounding systems," she said. "No more anomalies. No sign of the Guardians. But—" She hesitated. "But what?" Elias asked. "We picked up a faint signal. Same old Earth frequency. Same phrase. It's coming from 2 systems over." Elias felt the cold return to his spine. "Play it." The bridge speakers crackle, and a familiar voice filled the air. It wasn't Anna's, it wasn't anyone they knew, but the words were the same. "We never moved on." The crew gathered around the central table. Taylor swore under his breath. "It means there's another one." Mara nodded grimly. "And if the Guardians survived, they'll be rebuilding," Elias finished. For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of the choice hung over them all. They had destroyed one anchor, but the network, if it was a network, could stretch across dozens of worlds, maybe hundreds. "So, we hunt them," Elias said finally, "one by one." That night, Elias couldn't sleep. He dreamed of the ice moon again, but it wasn't collapsing. It was whole, and he was walking through the frozen streets. The photos on the walls were gone. The survivors weren't there. Only Anna stood in the square, her silver hair catching a light that came from nowhere. "You think this ends by breaking them?" she said softly. "But it doesn't. The anchor isn't the machine. The anchor is the memory." Elias frowned. "What does that mean?" Anna stepped closer. "You can shatter the device, but as long as someone remembers the day they couldn't move on, the loop finds them again." Before he could answer, she reached out and touched his chest. "That includes you." He woke in a cold sweat, the words still ringing in his ears. When he looked at his desk, he saw something that made his breath catch. A red ball. The same one that had rolled across the classroom floor on K-47. He hadn't brought it back. The next day, the Odyssey arrived in the system where the new signal was coming from. The planet was a green and gold sphere, lush and full of life. No abandoned cities, no ice, no sign of anything unnatural. But the signal was there, clear as day. They traced it to a small settlement at the edge of a river. Children played in the streets, farmers worked the fields, and in the center of the town square stood a black monument with faint, shifting symbols. It wasn't active, yet. Elias stood at the viewport watching the scene. Mara came up beside him. "Sir, what's the plan?" He didn't answer right away. His reflection in the glass looked older than it had a week ago, tired. Finally, he said, "We go down. We talk to them. If they don't know what it is, we explain. If they do, we stop it before it starts," Mara finished. Elias nodded. No loops this time. No ghosts. The shuttle descended through bright sunlight, nothing like the cold darkness of K-47. But as they approached the square, Elias felt a strange heaviness in the air. The same pull he'd felt in the ice cavern before the anchor had grabbed him. And then he saw her. Standing at the edge of the monument was a girl, no older than 12, her hair the same shade of silver as Anna's. She watched them with calm, knowing eyes. When Elias stepped out of the shuttle, she smiled faintly and said, "You came back." Elias froze. "Do I know you?" "Not yet," she said, "but you will. Again." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The girl's gaze flicked to the monument. "It's sleeping now, but when it wakes, we'll never move on." Elias took a slow breath. He realized in that moment what Anna had meant. Maybe the anchors weren't separate. Maybe they were all part of the same endless day, scattered across worlds, waiting for someone to step inside and start it again. And maybe he had been stepping into them his whole life. As the sun dipped low over the green fields, Elias made a silent promise. If there was a loop, he'd break it. If there was a memory, he'd end it. Even if it meant erasing himself from it forever. Because humanity's strength wasn't in preserving a perfect day, it was in moving on. The girl's voice followed him as they turned back toward the shuttle. Soft, certain. See you next time, Captain.